I've probably started and failed at more businesses than anyone I've ever met in my life.
Give me a roundabout number of businesses you failed at.
I can't even count.
You're in the 20s.
30s, 40s,
Holy
probably. Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
In today's episode, we get a chance to talk to Medi, who's failed at more businesses than anyone I've ever met. But here's the twist. He doesn't really see these as failures because after every single one of these businesses that he's started, from car selling to cannabis to web development, Medi comes back stronger, smarter, bigger. We get into a lot of things here, businesses and Persian culture and the mindset that it takes to become a serial entrepreneur and to win after so many failures. If you like this content and want to see more like it, please follow along and let me know what you think. Would love to hear from you. And now, here's Medi Hashemi. Where do we begin?
You know, to be honest, I have no idea. My journey has been like so wacky. It's so different than everyone else's journey. I'll just say this: I've probably started and failed at more businesses than anyone I've ever met in my life.
Well,
the amount of times that I've failed at businesses, I don't think anyone would ever want to be in business ever again on their own.
Give me a roundabout number of businesses you failed at.
I can't even count. It's just been
like you're in the tens.
Or beyond.
You're in the 20s.
30s, 40s, probably.
Holy
yeah,
shit.
Yeah. I think it's like it's an obsession that I have.
Failing.
I mean, you know, here's the thing that it's funny you say failing, and the way I see it is every time that I failed, I've come back bigger and stronger, and it's almost like I'm okay with failing. I almost bring it on because I'm curious myself, like where I'm going to end up after I fail and when I pick myself back up again.
Okay. I like that as a framing for where we're going. Let's back up a second.
Yeah.
And I know you're Persian.
Yes.
That we know. Mehdi, last name?
Medi Hashemi. My parents are from Iran.
Yeah.
They're Persian. I'm Persian racially or ethnically.
They came over in 79?
They came over in early 70s.
Oh.
Like 73, 74-ish. And of course, I was born here, right here in Southern California.
Home of
yes, sir.
Home of all the Persians.
Yeah. The epicenter, bro.
The epicenter, man. Okay. Did you grow up within a Persian community?
I mean, with the amount of family that I had here, I would say, in a way, you could say that. You know, of course, this is SoCal, so there's every shape and size of ethnicity out here. But
sure.
I grew up with a lot of Persians around me, namely my family. You know, I have 15 first or more than 15 first cousins.
Holy.
Just here in Southern California.
First cousins.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And did y'all like fall into the stereotype of what Persians are kind of known for, I guess? Like I don't know, kind of like, did you have like a gaudy house? Did you did you welcome people in with a lot of fucking delicious things? Was there always like a flow of people in your house? What else do I know? Like like the mom figure who's like, you know, a certain, like, you know, telling you got to do certain, a little over the top, but loving.
Yeah.
Father more stern. I don't know. I'm like, this is what I've seen. And
yeah, you're hitting all the points there for sure. And it's funny that you know all that. But so mine was a little bit different. But yes, we started out small. My parents came here and worked from the ground up.
In what?
They actually worked as hotel maids in Anaheim. You know, for those hotels near Disneyland.
They worked at the same hotel?
No. Different hotels.
Yeah.
I actually don't know exactly, but they were maids, and they kind of worked their way up. My dad eventually became a bartender in a small time hotel, and kept working his way up. Got into the car business, like so many Persians that I know, and so it's just been a heck of a journey for them. But they did eventually get themselves to the point where they had the big gaudy house, and were very inviting. So much so that I feel like, you know, in my childhood, I've always been growing up with some kind of a family that would come from Iran and stay with us for extended periods
months.
of time. Yes, absolutely.
Hell yeah.
I have, I have pictures and video of lots of family that have just been growing up with us in our home.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
I feel like most Persians that I've met came here with a lot of money and didn't work their way up. Is that a misconception?
It is. I think a lot of people have that misconception, and it's funny you say that because I had some content that I posted a little while ago, and I had lots of people saying the same exact thing. The reality that I've seen growing up, I've been here obviously my whole life, seeing Persians come from Iran and do the whole thing. Unfortunately for them, the country became pretty much run by a different regime, an Islamic regime that was very oppressive, and it was it did something to the country where even though people are educated and have these high levels of maybe positions and different jobs that they have, even doctors and things like that, they don't make a lot of money. And that's why a lot of them leave with PhDs and all these kind of degrees and stuff, but no money. Mm-hmm. They come here, and all of a sudden, for the same type of things that they would be doing there, they can make much more money. So they do come here. Usually they have to leave everything behind. A lot of times they can't leave with anything. They just grab whatever things they can throw in a suitcase, come over here. The money there is worthless.
Yeah.
Absolutely worthless. The dollar's worth so much more compared to their toman, they call it. But yeah, they come here with pretty much little to nothing.
Interesting.
For the most part, from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Very seldom do I see someone come here and because they're banking. You can't even do banking here. Like you can't transfer money here like that. It's not that type of a thing.
Yeah.
I grew up learning how to speak Farsi because I had so much family around, and they all were fresh from Iran, most all of them. So I do speak Farsi really, really well. I'm pretty fluent, I would say. But more than that, they instilled the culture, and they talked a lot about the history of our people.
Like in what context? You guys are like sitting around the table and your father starts like telling you the fucking history of Persia?
Well, in some cases, yeah, they would tell us about, hey, just so you know, of course, as kids, we're super curious and we're asking all these questions, and they have just so much information to tell us.
Yeah.
And so they were happily telling us, hey, by the way, we at one point in history had the largest empire, and that's something that Persians are proud of, of course. And so, then they tell you a lot about the rich artwork and poetry and all of that kind of culture that we have. So there's like so many of the greatest poets in the world came out of that country, out of Persia, I would say in some way.
Yeah.
Like Rumi and
oh my God.
Things like that. So yeah, it honestly, it was like overflowing with the amount of like, color that they or seasoning that they would put onto us.
Did you ever get to a point, because I know in a lot of like the American Jewish world, which is like where my context is like sometimes I'm like, dude, this is too much. Like I'm like too much in this world and not enough in like a broader like America, whatever that means. Like, did you ever feel that way?
I don't think I ever had the feeling of too much. The pride was so off the charts, I'm sure, if, with the experience you have with other Persians, our pride is just insane.
Yeah.
And sometimes we take it a little too far. Honestly, we really do. But I don't know if for me, I ever felt like it was too much. I loved it. I consumed all of it. I was hungry for it. It was devastating for me to know that it's a country where it's not the same as it at the time when they were telling me all about Persians in Iran, because there was a regime that took over and changed things so much. It was disappointing that it's not the same as when my parents were there and how they grew up.
Yeah.
And that really affected me a lot.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is. And it's not that type of a vacation-y type of place that you would love to go to. Like,
But it could be.
oh my God, it could, like, for example, if I was Italian, I would be like, dude, let's go right now. Let's go to Puglia. Let's
Wherever.
go to anywhere in Italy.
Yeah.
And it's a total vacation spot.
Yeah.
And you could have the time of your life. Everything's fine. We could break bread. We could have a couple drinks. We could, talk about whatever we want to talk about. Have a party without having to close all the windows so authorities won't hear us having a good time.
It's bullshit.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Sorry
no.
to interrupt you.
I interrupt.
I think I want to have a cigar, if you don't mind.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? You
I'm down. I'm in your world. Talk to me about what cigars mean to you, or when did they start being like an important part of your life, or is it an important part of your life? I don't know.
Cigars are something that I kind of came to later in life, and they are basically, I'm fortunate to have come across them. It's something where, as I kind of got more successful, I would be around more people that ended up wanting to smoke cigars, and I kind of had picked it up, and cigars are a whole journey on their own. But I'll tell you a little bit about it. This one is a Partagas D4. It's a real Cuban. It's aged. This one is I believe 2009. Sorry, this is a 2009 Partagas D4. So it's aged 16 years now.
Like with wine, aging matters in cigars.
Yes, yeah, it's actually a thing. I'll give you. Let's see here. Do you want something stronger or lighter?
I'd say lighter.
A little lighter.
Yeah. I'm not as experienced, I think, in this world.
I have a Ramona Jonas, and here's another Partagas. This is a little bit thinner, and it's a fun smoke. It's a little bit lighter.
What year?
Enjoyable. That one is a 2022, so that's 3 years aged. That's one of my favorite go-to cigars right there.
Hell yeah.
For just a smoke when I want to sit down and do some journaling, and I don't want to sit there for too long.
Yeah.
So I'll break out one of those. But I got into cigars just kind of like I said, kind of moving my way up the ladder and meeting people that's what they're, they would sit around and have cigars and talk business and things like that. And I was fortunate enough to end up living, one of the homes that I had a while back. My next door neighbor was a cigar connoisseur that was collecting and aging Cuban cigars since he was 20 years old.
So that really got you. What was his name, sorry?
His name is Wee. And he took me in under his wings and taught me everything he knew, man. So he got me hooked on these Cubans.
Should I ask you about how you got into starting businesses, or should I ask you about your first failed business?
I mean, we could start from what got me into it.
What got you into it? Because it's not like the typical, like, you're not a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer like you're expected to be, or I've seen a lot of Persian kids, kind of get pushed towards more traditional sort of like worlds, right?
Yeah. So the way I got into business is being surrounded by family that pretty much they were all the men were businessmen.
Yeah.
They did, of course, work for people. Like I said, my dad worked as a maid and bartender and all kinds of things, but he ended up owning his own wholesale car business where he would buy and sell cars. My uncles were all businessmen. They owned their own companies and were very successful. And that was, I mean, as a kid growing up, you look up at that and say, wow,
They made it.
And I can't wait till one day also be able to make it.
Dude, was it something that they, like, was it like a leather jacket that they wore? Was it some swagger that they had? Was it something that you saw in them that was like, I want that? Like,
well, I mean, by the time I was a kid growing up, they had become successful.
Yeah.
So they did have the bigger homes. They had the nicer cars. They had the lifestyle.
Yeah.
They had all that. And it was a thing.
yeah.
And so, as a kid, here's the interesting part is as a kid, even though my dad had a successful business, he never wanted me to be in that business. he always wanted me to find my own way.
How
So-
did he express that? He was just direct about it? He's like,
very direct about it. And his reasoning was that, I don't want you in this car business. It's a dirty business. There's a lot of snakes. It's just a lot of people lying to each other and pulling each other's, just like I said, a lot of snakes and stuff in the business. And he didn't want me to be anywhere near the business, even though he would take me there and have me there with him. And I pretty much grew up in his car business.
and I do know, based on some of your content online, is that you do really love cars.
Massively. I'm a car fanatic, and you can imagine my dad was was in the wholesale car business, and he basically would bring home a different car every day, because he was buying and selling used cars, and so every day he'd buy different cars and he'd be driving them home and whatnot. So it was a whole thing. Where's my lighter?
Okay, so I get it now. Like you're, I see it right here.
Oh, perfect.
You're seeing these examples in your father, your uncles, all that stuff, and you're like, I want that life. And so you start going down some sort of, probably really early on, like OG entrepreneurial pursuit.
Massively.
What was it?
Really early.
And how old were you?
So I was 17. Actually, I was coming out of high school. I was 17, 18. I was a senior in high school, and I started a website design business where I would basically, it was the beginning of the internet.
Yeah.
There you go. That should be ready for you.
Thank you. Anything I need to know before I do this? Like, just smoke it.
Just smoke
And don't
it.
tap it, right? I've heard you don't tap the shit.
No, yeah, just, and don't inhale.
Okay. I've smoked a cigar before. I feel like I'm in the presence of like I don't know. Here's my it's not an insecurity. I think because I feel good about my form of like manhood and masculinity, but I feel like right now talking to you, I'm in the presence of like a man's man. You brought out the fucking the whiskey, the bourbon. You've got the you're into cars and you like cigars. I mean, like we're in man zone. So I'm on the journey with you.
Yeah, I mean, I never did what I did thinking of wanting to be a man, but it just, I guess, happened that way. But going back to the business, I started my first business designing websites when the internet had just come out, my senior year in high school. And I would basically, it was crazy. I would go dress up and knock on doors of businesses. I would go to business complexes, knock on their doors, and ask them if they wanted a website for their business. And I actually had gone to a print center like a FedEx Kinko's at the time, and I would print out like a kind of like an order form or sheet and have a carbon copy behind it. So it was like those 2 pages where you fill it out and it kind of goes onto the backside. And so I would give them one copy and I would keep one copy.
Oh my God, you were hustling hard. Mm-hmm. Okay, did it work? I don't even know what that means.
Wow, this is incredible.
I love it.
Actually so good. Wow. It's crazy. The internet had just begun. We're like a couple years into the internet, and it's picking up, and everybody wanted a website. And if you had a business, that was like your next thing that you knew you should be doing. And every door that I knocked on, I got a yes, 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 yes. And I would sign them up. I would charge them X amount of dollars to create a basic page for their business, almost like a directory style, just kind of
Were you
basic
making
information.
it?
Yeah, I would make it myself. HTML and all that kind of stuff.
You taught yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. This all started when we had, what was it, MySpace? Back into the AOL, MySpace, and then you would have your own page and you would use HTML to put fonts and colors and pictures and, all that kind of stuff. And I learned how to do that. And from there, I decided, I realized I could, do this for other people and make money out of it.
Side question.
Sure.
What was your AOL IM name?
Big Medi.
Big Medi.
Yeah.
I was Horn Frog 12.
Say it again.
Horn Frog 12.
Horn Frog 12. That's funny.
And I also had Not Too Shabby. You know, my last name's Shableman. Not Too Shabby. I think I took that from my dad. But Horn Frog 12 was my primary one. Big Medi. I like it.
Big Medi. I was a thicker kid, stronger kid when I had big bones, and I wrestled in high school. I was just a kind of a bigger dude in that way, not necessarily tall, but thicker, and that was kind of my nickname. But yeah, so I went to businesses. They all said yes. They were all happy to sign up and have websites. I would charge them to create the websites, and I would charge them to host and maintain their websites monthly.
Great business.
I would send out actual letters in the mail to them, invoices where they would send back checks. And it was incredible, man. I was 18. I was making money, and I finally graduated high school. I ended up going to college for computer information systems is what they call it at the time, IS. It was business administration with emphasis in information systems.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, man, I'm forgetting all this stuff. It's so long ago, man. So I started there. And at that same time also, my mom was working for Sony Pictures Entertainment in their information systems. And she ended up saying, hey, I can get you a job here as an intern if you want to start in the corporate world and stuff like that. And I was like, well, man, I'm going to school. I got this business that I'm trying to run. But I guess I don't know what I was thinking, but I ended up going to Sony Pictures and working there as an intern.
Wow.
Making $8 an hour.
Yeah.
So, long story short, I ended up giving up the business to kind of complete these different things that I was doing, school and the corporate world.
Yeah.
And so that was the first business I ever created. And although it seems now that I kind of say it out loud like this, it seems like it was a success, but I guess I feel like it's a failure because I dropped it and I didn't take it to where it could have gone. I mean, that would have been an incredible business to be pursuing my whole life.
Yeah. But you got a taste of success there.
Yes.
And you knew you could do it.
I knew that, hey man, I could start something up and start doing something that using some skills that I have, and other people are happily willing to pay for those skills.
Hell yeah.
And I guess I mean, maybe it was a good thing, maybe it wasn't, but because of that, I ended up starting all kinds of businesses throughout my whole life.
Like name some.
I mean, it's just it's just many more that were involved with the web and creating online businesses. Websites that were money generating websites, and I was heavily into web development.
Yeah.
But I've done all kinds of things. I've anywhere from web development to cannabis. I was in all kinds of different types of businesses, and I was always trying different things. I was in the car business at some point. I opened up my own car shop, repair shop that I would not only repair people's cars, classic cars. I would buy classic cars and take them in and do what I knew what to do with them because of my dad, and resell them on eBay. At some point I would buy and sell watches, and I did all kinds of different things, man. It's really hard to to pick.
No, I think giving a taste for it is great. What was the one that you felt like was the most successful?
The most successful business, and the one that I enjoyed the most, was web development.
Yeah.
I could sit back in my office and go ham on my computer and be creative. It's art to me.
Yeah.
It's like I bring out the artistic side, the creation side, and I just think of, hey, what kind of need is there that I can fulfill?
You had said that or that you're into sales.
Yes.
And I have a preconceived notion of sales.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping you can tear that down for me, because sales to me kind of sometimes is associated with like the slimy, snaky, like the snake oil salesman, you know?
That's funny you say that, because I have a great story for you.
All
and
right.
I will break it down for
Yeah.
you. So when I graduated from college with my computer degree, business degree, kind of a mixture of the two, unfortunately for me, that was at the time of what was called the dot-com crash.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And that was when they were laying off people that were good at what I graduated.
99, 2000.
Yes, exactly. It was just one of those things where I got kind of stuck, and I said, shoot, what do I do? And everywhere I applied, they didn't want me. And so I said, well, okay, so I got to figure something else out. So my first job out of college was in Buena Park, working for Shelley BMW. At the time, it was called Shelley BMW. Now I think it's called BMW of Buena Park. But when I started on the front line selling cars. And it's crazy that you say what you say, because, in the first 3 months that I worked there, actually in the first 2 months that I worked there, I sold half a car.
Half a car.
Yeah.
How do you sell half a car?
Because you suck at selling cars so bad, they have to bring someone else in to talk to your customer to close that deal, and you get half of a deal. You get half of a sale.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you weren't very good.
I sucked.
And why do you think you sucked?
I explained it to my managers why I sucked. I said, hey, I'm not made out for this car sales stuff. I'm not here to try to trick people into buying a car. I'm not good at it, and I don't like it. And they're like, well, they try to help me out a little bit more and whatnot, because they knew my dad and they were trying to work with me. But I just would go home every day thinking, man, this is not me. I don't want to try to, manipulate people and twist their arm into buying something and try to take their money and stuff like that. I had a girlfriend at the time that I was going through this, and her brother was also a car salesman, and he was selling Land Rovers in Anaheim Hills, Range Rovers, Discoveries, and those kind of vehicles. And he said, you know what, man, I hear you, but it's not what you're saying it is. Just come over to my dealership and I'll help you out. I'll hold your hand. I'll walk you through it. I'm like, no, dude, you're crazy. And besides, I don't want to be a salesman. This is not me. I'm not cut out for this. So we went back and forth, a few days, a few weeks. And finally he convinced me, and I quit the job there. I said, hey guys, I'm out. And I left BMW. I went to Land Rover. And he kind of guided me on a few things and walked me through and allowed me to kind of shadow him in some ways. And within the first 2, maybe 3 months, I was the number one salesperson in the dealership.
Oh, shit.
And for the next 12 months after that, I was number one, probably 10 out of the 12.
You were crushing it.
Crushing it.
What switched?
What switched was they had what they called the Land Rover way. And they would explain, they had this whole video and this whole kind of instruction guide or whatnot, kind of a school where, they would teach you how to talk to people and how to learn, what their wants are and how you can basically help them. And I learned that, hey, I'm not manipulating them or tricking them into buying something they don't want to buy. They came here because they want a Range Rover or they want a Discovery or whatever it may be. I'm just facilitating the deal and kind of moving them forward in that process.
Yeah.
So that's where there was kind of a switch for me. And I learned, hey, I'm helping people, not tricking them. And that's where, when I made that switch in my mind, like I became, better at sales than I could ever imagine.
Because the tone that you have with people changes. It's like, I remember in the early Airbnb days, we would hire people to come on and be host on the site. And if you tried to sell them on the idea of letting random strangers in their own home, they weren't gonna. If you were selling them, like truly selling, as I was thinking about sales, there was no way you were gonna get people to do that. You had to talk to them in a way that was going to like excite them about the idea of actually sharing their home and their community and their culture with an outsider, which is actually what they wanted to do. And but if you were so hardcore like into like getting them onto the website, they could get on. You could sell them, but they wouldn't last.
Right.
You really had to like tap into the thing that they actually wanted to do, which was open up their homes to share a little bit of their life.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to learning about what is it that they want, what is it that they're looking for, and how can I help them get that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as opposed to just pushing something onto them. Hey, this is what you should be doing because this person did and this, and I really think you should, and here, just do it. You want to sign? It's like, no, people don't want to, they don't respond well to that. So once you learn how to basically understand people and listen to them, then you're helping them and yourself. Just like with any transaction in any business, people are not paying for Google advertisements because they want to waste money.
Yeah.
They get something out of it.
Sure.
Right? People end up seeing their websites and go on to or see their businesses or their products or whatever it may be. And it's like that for anything. And once you make that click, then you can be a successful salesperson and be helpful to other people.
Yeah. What are you up to now? What's the thing that's like holding your like headspace and time and passion and energy right now?
So it's been a long journey. I've done a lot of different jobs, worked for a lot of great people, great companies, and eventually found my way into enough success with my own businesses where I could kind of break out and be on my own and not have to be working for someone else.
Yeah, what an amazing place to be.
It's phenomenal. Well, I mean, once you do that, you learn that, being successful is not about the money, it's about getting your time back. And that's when I had time to kind of do that stuff and figure out what it is that I want to do. The big thing that was able to get me there is what I've always done, web development. And so I've done that. That was great. But now I'm kind of moving into a space where, I'm wanting to kind of share myself, my stories, and my perspective with other people. I know there's a lot of motivators out there and stuff like that, and I'm not trying to be some kind of a motivator for someone. I'm just trying to offer a perspective and show kind of what my path was. And see, I actually, to be honest, I like to see how people respond to it. I like to see what people have to say about it, and I like to watch people kind of light bulbs go off in people's heads, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of what's now called content creation.
You and me both, buddy.
Yeah, which is why we're here, right? And to be quite honest, this really came about as I moved myself up, in these different businesses that I've created and meeting different people, having amazing conversations that then I wish, other people would listen to. And I was like, dude, I just had this conversation with someone and this is what we talked about. And it's like, man, I need to record these things. We need to sit down and discuss these things on camera so other people can hear them. Like they're interesting conversations, and I think they're interesting because I like listening to people have these conversations.
Yeah.
I love to go jump on YouTube and listen to some successful people or knowledgeable people, have high level conversations, and basically, help me shape my perspective in a way.
Yeah, I like that. Well, as you talk, one thing that comes to mind is you don't seem to be someone who lacks confidence. and like it doesn't feel like a confidence that's like arrogance. It just feels like it's a grounded confidence, which I think is unique in this world in a way. And I'm curious, with so many like failures and or whatever you want to call them under your belt, like you've somehow like stayed confident, even though there's been moments where, you know, you could have attached to the story that it wasn't working. Like why are you like that?
You know, I think it's curiosity. I think I just have this insane level of curiosity about the world, and it's something that drives me to have hardcore obsessions, and you know, I become curious about things, and I want to learn about things. I want to, you know, turn over all these rocks and learn so much. And I'm not the type of person that just wants to take a look and put it back. I want to take a look and figure out, how the hell did this thing happen like this? How can I create something like that? What does that journey look like? And to me, that I love the journey of moving, the learning part, like that. And I don't think there's anything more exciting to me than the journey of learning new things. It's
Yeah.
And that's probably why I had a lot of failures, because I would have these obsessions and I would learn these things, go deep into them and master them in some cases. Actually, in most cases, I would master these things, but then I would have another obsession and I would be so obsessed with that and I want to master that. And so, you know, they say, what's better, to be a jack of all trades or a master of one? And to me, I feel like I want to be a master of all of these things, you know. And so it wasn't until I learned how to, stick to a couple of them that I know I can, you know, a couple businesses that I know I can run, that I have interest in, that hold my interest enough, but also give me enough time to follow through with other obsessions that come along.
Interesting. I have a I'm so
And
yeah, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt.
No,
you.
interrupt, please.
Going back to you know, how do I stay confident? I think I don't ever have some idle time. I don't have idle time to sit around and be worried about, you know, oh no, am I gonna make it? Am I not? Am I this or that? And you know, how come I'm feeling like this? How come I'm feeling? I don't give myself that time to have those type of thoughts. I'm always looking for, how do I build this thing? How do I create that thing? How did they make that? Let me learn how to do it. I want to make one too. And how do I? And so it's this curiosity and pursuit that just keeps me going forward. And there's no end to that. And there might be a downside to that, you know, but that to me, I feel like, you know, it had done, you know, I've done something where I don't give myself idle time. I'm flying through this life. And so
when you find a new obsession,
does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Okay.
But when you find a new obsession, do you in your mind think that this is going to be a temporary obsession, or when you're in it, when you're in the obsession of it, are you thinking this is what you're going to do forever?
It depends on the obsession. Some of them were temporary obsessions, and I knew they were. And some of them, you know, I thought I could follow through with the rest of my life, and I just didn't know. Too young, didn't understand. Because I was always moving through life in this way and not having that idle time, I didn't look inward a lot to kind of understand and see, what am I doing? Like, what type of a person am I? How does my mind work? And so it's funny you said temporary obsession. I actually, one of my websites that I created 15 or 20 years ago, about 15 years ago, is temporary obsessions.
Really?
And I own it to this day.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
That's
so
so cool.
I have temporary obsession and temporary obsessions. I have both of those URLs. And there was a time when I was blogging, and I was putting my obsessions and writing about them. But then I gave that up. My temporary obsession website became a temporary obsession itself.
That's amazing.
It's crazy.
Do you
Why did you say that?
do you think you're delusional? And is it a bad thing to be delusional?
I think in some way I maybe am delusional. And maybe I was more delusional before when I wasn't introspective, when I wasn't looking in and learning about myself. When I would think, man, this is amazing. This is going to be my next, wow, this is going to be the business for me and the thing that I want to do for myself for the rest of my life. And I guess that would be considered a delusion at the time. But after I started the journey of introspection, journaling, learning about myself, writing things down and thinking about what the heck I'm doing. Where do I want to go? Where am I on that path? It wasn't until I did that where I guess I kind of became a little bit more, more realistic.
And you're saying that didn't necessarily help your business pursuits.
Which one?
I don't know, being introspective.
I think it helped me. I think it did help my business pursuits. It helped me, kind of understand what the heck I'm doing, and then choose things that would have a better chance of surviving my crazy mindset. So, yeah. I think I'm glad we had this conversation because I'm going to journal about this later, but. Finding things that will survive my mindset. I never looked at it that way.
Interesting.
I like the way that sounds.
That's cool framing.
It makes a lot of sense to me now, like that.
I think that I think people, we're all delusional. Is how I think about things. Sometimes when we attach so much to our failures, that's a delusion. We're overly attaching beyond reality to our failures. And on the opposite, is that sometimes we overly attach to our successes beyond reality. And in some ways, I think that if it's all a delusion, you might as well choose a delusion that's going to serve your life. That's how I think about
That's interesting. That's a good way to look at it. I never thought about that. Huh.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about this journaling thing, because that came out of left field for me, because I guess when I turn on my judgment cap and I judge you, I go into the place of like, this fucker's just a machine. He's not thinking. He's just fucking doing.
Yeah.
Which is, you need these people in the world,
Yeah.
But I have spent so much of my fucking life, my last couple of years especially, doing the whole introspection and growth and blah 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 bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I could use a little bit more machine.
Yeah.
But I know I'm coming at it from a judgment perspective, because now that you're talking about this this journaling thing and it sounds like there's something else happening underneath the surface, and I'd like for you to talk about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you how I got to the journaling thing, and I'm glad I was able to finally get there, because who knows if I would have gotten to this place in my life. Life is short. Sometimes none of us get to these points in our life, but I'm really glad I did. When I say I did a lot of sales, I did lots and lots of sales throughout the majority of my life, starting with selling cars on the front line, working my way up, eventually going to the auto finance side of the world. So coming out of the dealerships and working for banks, and specifically, at some point I worked for Capital One, which is they provide lots of auto loans, one of the largest auto loan providers in the country. And I worked inside, looking at loans, underwriting loans, approving loans,
You've done
declining
everything.
loans. I've done those kind of things. And then when they realized that I have this ability to sell, they finally put me out into the field as a rep, where I would basically go out to dealerships and basically sell them on Capital One. And when I had that job, that as a rep, I was able to make my own schedule, go out, visit dealerships, meet people, learn about them, and kind of talk to people and develop relationships. But when I was able to create my own schedule, that for the first time ever allowed me to slow down and stop and think. And when I did that, I ended up going online, going on YouTube like a lot of people do, and like probably they will do with this video.
Hopefully.
And I would start learning and things like that. At some point, I learned about journaling, and I saw this thing about bullet journaling online specifically, and it was a new style of journaling that I learned. I never knew about it, but it's something that helps you kind of plan out your year, and then each month that you're in, and how to basically write down your goals and work towards your goals, check them off, and that type of thing. So it was then that I slowed down and actually started learning about myself. And I learned a lot. And I realized that I had been going through my life almost never looking at myself and learning and seeing things that I could improve on and fix, and maybe some of these delusions that I had, improve on those and whatnot. Then I started carrying a pocket notebook with me everywhere, writing everything down. And I would start going through goals, and I started achieving goals, and I started winning. These all kinds of little wins that I had for myself. Then I made a goal. I said, you know what? I need to start creating enough money very soon that will basically become more money than I'm making working for Capital One. And I gave myself a time frame, and I said, within a year from now, I will make enough money to where I don't need to work for Capital One or anyone else ever again. And when I made that goal, I created a pathway to get there. Once I did that, I created some type of a work ethic for myself. And I said to myself, okay, so I decided, okay, I'm working, this part of my day is dedicated to Capital One. And they pay me for that. And I did the work, and I actually outperformed everything they wanted me to do. And I made sure to do that. But the rest of my day, I'm going to spend on creating this type of income for myself. And what I did was basically after 6 or 7 p.m. every day, I would go and work on my own businesses all the way till 1, 2, 3 a.m. every day.
Wow.
Because it's kind of like a formula that I created for myself in a way that would then allow me to basically create, that thing that made me the money. And eventually I was able to kind of, thankfully get myself to that point where I didn't need to I didn't need to work for anyone else ever again.
What was the thing you did?
Web development.
Oh, still.
Yeah.
You went back to your roots.
Yeah. Yeah, I went back to my roots, and so I did some web dev and designed some 2 different sites that basically I would kind of like Yelp, where I would develop. I created a directory for other businesses that they could then advertise. It's weird, but I kind of feel like I have, I don't want to say I want to fail, but it's like I'm okay with it. If I have such a strong desire or curiosity about something, I will pursue it, even though I know I could possibly fail at doing that. It's very possible that I would fail. But it was worth it to me to grow.
A question came up for me when you were talking. Is like, do you believe in this whole concept of manifestation?
My fiance talks about manifestation a lot. She's talked about it since we got together. And at first I was like, come on, stop, with this manifest. She said, oh, don't say those kind of things, then because that will happen. Because I say sometimes, I'm doing this thing and who knows, I may fail. So like, don't say that,
Don't put it out in the universe.
Don't put it out in the universe because it just might happen. And so I didn't really understand it, I would say. But over time, I learned to understand it. And I guess, to me, manifestation is when you not just say something, but you think about it ongoingly, to the point where you end up subconsciously kind of doing things that will move you towards that outcome. So in that sense, I do now believe in it. I did not before.
I like that
do
answer.
now believe in it. One of the big things for me that we've already discussed is that whole thing of it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the massive, massive things that I learned about myself. There was a long time that I didn't realize what I was doing until I started journaling and understanding myself and realizing, hey, I'm doing these things knowing that I could fail.
Yeah.
And once I knew that, then I was able to kind of harness my own power of my and my ability to get back up and be bigger and stronger. After I fail, after every failure, I came back bigger,
Hell yeah.
and that was, I think, the biggest thing. So
You became bigger Medi.
yeah.
So I like to end these conversations with a question, but it's a question that you would ask someone to ask themselves. Like, what's a question that you would want people to ask themselves?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I mean, I think I got to think about this a little more, but just right off the top of my head, I would say, how far can I take this thing?
How far can I take this thing?
Yeah, because I think a lot of times, a lot of people, I'll just say, sit idle and think about failures. Think about different types of things that, sometimes drive people into depressions and different things like that. I think effort is huge, and I think curiosity is huge, and I think looking forward down a road, I think, is massive. And the question would be is how far can I take this thing? And once you start asking that, like, I think it unravels a lot of things.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Medi.
Thank you, bro.
This was fun.
Yeah, it's badass.
Appreciate it, brother.